going day in and day out and things don't seem to change or get any better? Let me share a story. This is a book by K.P. Yohannan. He started Gospel for Asia, and the book's called Destined to Soar. A tiny eaglet fell out of his nest in a tall tree near a farm, and he landed in a chicken coop. He found himself surrounded by little chicks and thought these were his siblings. He grew up like them, learning to scratch for insects and peck at the seeds the farmer scattered in the barnyard. The young eagle's wings and feathers began to grow, but he never perceived himself to be anything more than a member of his chicken family. One day an older eagle soaring in the sky spotted him in the barnyard. The eagle swooped down and had a face-to-face talk with the young eagle. He said, "You're not a chicken," he said. "You're an eagle. You're not supposed to hop around on the ground looking for bugs. This is not your life. You are meant to fly in the heavens and ride the wind." These words opened the eagle's eyes to who he really was and gave him the desire to join his new friend above the clouds. He spread his wings, and after a few attempts lifted off, and he flew to the nearest tree. With each try he flew farther and higher. Before long he mounted up with the wind and disappeared into the vastness and freedom of the skies. Man, I love that story, you know? Man, this story is about us, if you look at it, living below our potential, you know? This is a story about us living below what we were called to do. This is a story about us living below the abundant life that Jesus came to give us. You know, Jesus said he came to give us life, and abundant life. Well, we are already alive, so that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about life and living life. And as Christ followers, we're supposed to be soaring like eagles. We have God in our lives. We have the Holy Spirit within us. And we get so caught up in the day-to-day junk that we're not even supposed to be worried about. We can't control it anyway. What am I going to do with 3 kids in college? You know, where am I going to do with that? You know, with my work. You know, I can't tell them what they need to do or not do. My finances. You know, I'm working hard, but God's got to work all that stuff out in me. I can't do this. So the question is, you know, do you want to change? Do you want to see your life different? Do you want to drop these troubles in your lives? Do you want to soar like eagles? Okay, so here's what happened. So Thursday or Wednesday night, I talk with this guy, right? Okay, Thursday morning, I get up. All right, my perspective has already changed because I leaned into an opportunity with God. I go to work. I built this tool. We're kind of slow in our shop, so they had me go over with this other group, and they're doing research and development. And so I get this drawings and a box of parts, and put it together. And so it's all together, and the guy I'm working with, Junior, he goes, "Let's fire this thing up." It's his first try, and one of the field guys is there to test it out. And then Junior says, "Hey," his manager comes. He goes, "Hey, let's watch this thing get fired up." And then his manager's manager is there, and he calls him over, and all of a sudden I'm feeling really worried, because this isn't my place. I just came over to help these guys. They gave me this tool. So they fire this thing on. It's got these water, it's run by water. I guess it's used to help extend these things, water pressure. And the thing is leaking like a garden hose. And I'm like, oh boy. And they go, "Cut the water. You messed that one up." And he goes, "Well, let's try the motor. This thing's supposed to rotate, lift up and down." And so they try the motor, and there's this a piece on it called a chuck, and when the air hits it, it expands. And what it is, it's a weld tool. It goes up in a tube, and it locks in, and it goes around and welds a joint on the inside of a tube. Well, as they move the motor, the chuck comes apart from the rest of the body, and then all the managers, they're just standing there, and they look at it, and they look at me, and everybody just turns around and walks out. And I'm like, oh my, And then I realized something. See, I built this thing, but I had a couple of guys helping me with the sub-assemblies of it, right? Because we put these sub-assemblies together, and then we put the whole thing together. Well, I didn't do either one of those, right? So it wasn't my fault. And I wanted to jump up and say, wait a minute. But there was something that had changed Wednesday night. What would Jesus have done? And when I read his word and it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. See, in order for me to get out of that, I would have had to blame the guys that were responsible for that. How is that making them better than me? That's me willing to throw them under the bus, you know, and I just laughed. And I took it apart, and I fixed it, and I put it back together. And see, these things were changing inside of me now. You know, I wasn't looking at myself anymore. Okay? So that's Thursday. All right, work's leaving. Overtime's off, so I leave a little bit early that night. I go to Lynchburg College. And, you know, that's my daughter wants to go there. And like, wow, really, that much a year? Wow. But at the end of this guy walks up to me and he goes, you're Steve, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. I go, what's your name? He goes, Steve. He goes, I was with you in your class with Celebrate Recovery. I'm thinking, man, I haven't done CR for 3 years. And I felt God just kind of tapping me on the shoulder. You know, we exchanged just a few words with one another. And, of course, I had my engaged card. You know, I handed him a card. I said, man, hey, this is what we do on Saturdays and Mondays. But I felt God tapping me on the shoulder. See what you were doing 3 years ago. When you were serving me, you made enough of a impression on this guy that he remembers you after all that time. Wow. Wow. Friday. I get up, and hopefully you can edit this part for Stephen. See, you know, I didn't spend a lot of time on this, and I'm not doing this flippantly, but my week was really busy because the first 3 days I was just worried about myself, you know, and then all of a sudden God started giving me opportunities, and it's like, this or what God's given me to do. And I had to put this down for a minute. And it's hard for a perfectionist like me. So what happens is I get with this group of guys in the morning. We're praying and we're sharing stories, and I'm really feeling good. And actually, this thing all came together out of that meeting that morning. 3 of us got together, and it all clicked and it all came together. What I was going to talk about. And so I go home, and on the way home, I'm thinking about that guy from Wednesday night. So I text him, "Hey, do you have time to get together today? You know, I'm off. You know, work slow." So he texts me back, yeah, how about 1:30? So I say, okay, that's good. You know, I'll meet you at 1:30. So I'm home, and I'm starting to pick this up, and then I get a knock on my door. Okay, and this woman comes to my door and says, my car won't start. You know, now God, you know, has opportunity knocking at my door, right? And to be honest with you guys, if you have a car problem and you call me, you got to be pretty desperate, because I only know one thing. If you turn that key and it goes click, click, it's your battery. Anything outside of that. So I'm like, oh boy, okay. So I go out, tell this lady, I go, turn your key, and she goes click, click, and I'm like, man, it's your battery. Let me get my car, my jumper cables, I start up. She goes, thank you so much. I said, no, thank God. This is the one thing I know about cars. And it's just like, and I'm walking back inside and said, isn't that just like you, God? The one thing I could do to help this woman out. She'd have been better off hooking on anybody else's door but mine, but she came to my door. God gave me an opportunity to lean in on a neighbor. She's getting ready to call a tow truck. You know what that costs? Man. I go back inside, ready to pick this up. It's time to meet this guy, John. So we're going to meet over at Taco Bell, and I get there a few minutes early, and I get a taco and a drink, and this woman comes up to me and goes, hey, how you doing? And it's like, she's talking to me like she knows me, and I'm like, hi. And she goes, you know what? I go to Blue Ridge. You're the guy who seats me. And wow, it just, you know, I'm like the world's most famous usher now, you know. I feel great. I'm sitting down, and it's God just tapping me on the shoulder saying, see, Steve,